So, Johnny, Legendary Jim here for Radio Legendary News Services, Sons of Liberty Riders Motorcycle Club, and All for One. And I'm so tickled to get a chance to sit down with you because you are the former Sergeant at Arms of the One Percenter Cossacks of Waco. And though you weren't at Twin Peaks, you've got quite a lot to explain that the general public has never heard of. And so you guys called the One Percenter chapter of Owen's Rat Pack. Now that's because Owen Reeves is. Can you fill me in on the character of his operation?
So Owen Reeves is. There's been a lot of rumor, but there's also been confirmation after paperwork has surfaced that he not only is an informant, but continues to work for law enforcement agencies. There's a thing called the Black Curtain program, and what that program pretty much is as long as a person starts shit, you can't run drugs, run guns, but you can start something and then back out. It pretty much excludes you from any sort of judicial punishment or any sort of repercussion.
Now, when you say start something, can you amplify what you mean by that?
Same way he started the Twin Peaks thing. Same way he started the persecution of a lot of Red and Gold members or Red and Gold Support Club members due to the fact that, he's persuaded, I would say, and convinced by his wife or old lady, whatever you want to call her, Yvonne Mormon, who she herself happens to be under the witness protection program for turning on her own family.
And her road name is?
Spike.
So that's Yvonne Reeves. Her son was killed at Twin Peaks.
That is correct.
A gunshot wound.
It is, but to clarify, it is her own hate and Owen Reeves' hate that caused her son to be murdered at Twin Peaks or killed. Because at the end of the day, it is through their actions, through their transgressions, that caused everything to build up to that event. If it wasn't for them, Twin Peaks would have probably never happened.
What do you think motivates her hate?
So when I was there with them and I was a part of the club, a lot of the times I'd go over and I'd hang out with them. She would do this thing. She calls it rock and roll breakfast. In other words, she wakes up early in the morning, makes some shitty fish tacos, and plays some worn out rock music, which nobody likes except for her and her husband. But the thing is, I was sitting there at the end of the day, and the beginning of the day, I should say, and she was sitting there telling me how when they were down in Houston, her brother-in-law was out at a bar, and when her brother-in-law was out, I guess he ended up running to some individuals who he decided to bring up the fact that his brother-in-law, at that point he's referring to Owen Reeves. So this is Spike's brother, or Yvonne Mormon, if that's obviously not even her real name because she's under witness protection, but her brother's at a bar. He starts running his mouth about how his brother-in-law is the nomad for this, the nomad for the Cossacks, and nobody can touch him. Well, I don't know about you, but I have a guy running his fucking mouth. He's drunk. I'm going to put an end to it eventually. Whether I have to talk to you or persuade you, at the end of the day, I don't feel like fucking hearing it. Nobody does. I feel like if you go out and you want to enjoy your time, you should do just that, and nobody should be there to annoy you when you're trying to get away from everything already. So he ends up getting his teeth knocked in, not necessarily that severely, but somebody shut him up. He runs back to them and tells them that it was Red and Gold members. Now, was there ever any confirmation of it being Red and Gold members? Absolutely not. However, due to the fact that Spike's brother got beat up by whoever these individuals were, her hate became his hate. At that time, they were still living in Houston, and Chain was still around. Now, I know a lot of people are probably not going to be too happy about this and the way I'm going to say it, but if Owen Reeves Big O, Samson, whatever he calls himself now. Actually, I think on social media he's under Billy Joel. Billy Joe. At the end of the day, if he said jump, Chain would say how high. If he said run, he'd say how far. He would do anything and everything that man said without any question. Whether it was because that was his stepfather or his real father or whatever it was he was to him, the man did whatever he was told. Without any second thought to it, without any rationale. So once that happened, that's what started the problems for them down in the Houston, Pasadena area. Eventually, something happened that caused them and forced them to move. As of right now, there isn't any sort, I don't have the actual answer to that. What I do know is this. Once they got here, it became his little hub of hate. And the reason I say that is because any time and every time I was with him, all he would ever preach is fuck the banditos. You see one, fucking smash them, chase them off the fucking highway. It was always something that it was a hate derived from his wife's hate. In other words, she's running the fucking club due to her fucking transgressions.
And that's what happened at the 322 mile marker in Lorena, Texas. A bandito was riding back from Dallas, and he got run off the road by men in 3 pickup trucks, and they beat him with hammers and a piece of pipe. And that happened on March the 22nd, and it happened at the 322. So 3 and 2 is 5, 5 and 2 is 7, 3, 5 and 7, and that's on the logo for Skull and Bones.
Yes, sir.
And that is a magic number.
Absolutely.
And this, in my opinion, is some type of an op by the G and by the intelligence community, because those are their symbols.
Absolutely.
And so that's my personal opinion, because there was Jade Helm going on at the time. Joint Assistant Defense Executive, Homeland Elimination of Local Militants.
Yes, sir.
So it could be, if somebody on witness protection gets hot in Pasadena and they move to Waco, it could be that they were relocated.
Implanted.
It's a possibility. It's something that could have happened. It's not anything you'd want to discount just out of hand and say, no, that kind of stuff doesn't happen, because it does.
Absolutely. So
it occurs to me that on the other side of the coin, talking about hate, talking about shock culture, there are a lot of bikers of all types, all clubs, and some of them independent, who are veterans. And they wear swastikas, SS symbols, they've got them tattooed, they've got pins, they've got buttons, they've got all kinds of stuff. And that's not the full extent of it. There's quite a bit of other symbolism that goes on. And you have a special name for that, and you have a reason for it, and you have been able to connect that to the inception of 1%er clubs post-World War II by combat veterans. That's who founded the Market Street Commandos, pissed off bastards of Bloomington, Winos, crew. Who else, all these guys wound up being like HA and the Booze Fighters, and many of the old clubs from way back. And I think Banditos started in 1969, 66. Don Chambers had been to Vietnam in the Marine Corps. He came back, and people have explained to me that what Mr. Chambers wanted, Marine Chambers wanted more than anything else, was a family. And so he built one. And it occurs to me that I have never talked to a biker yet that did not refer to his associates as his brothers and their old ladies as his sisters. So there's something about this. And can you break that down for us? Make us understand it, because it's deep and it needs to be known.
So as far as the swastikas and the lightning bolts go, back in the World War II era, a lot of the soldiers that would come back weren't accepted by society. You know, we were seen as outcasts. We were seen as the unwanted, you know, the undesirables. Why? Because we were, you know, it's like a lot of people say, some scars of war you can see, some you can't, and the ones you can't are the mental scars. We come back with a completely different mindset, and people don't understand us. They don't want to accept us. They don't even want to take the time to listen to us as veterans. You know, what the average veteran goes through overseas, I would say 99.9% of people in this world will never understand, because the trauma, the sleepless nights, the constant looking over your shoulder, the paranoia, it's just one of those things that it takes a toll on you. But then we have to come back to the same country which we so dearly hold in our hearts and love and care about, and be rejected by our own people. Well, back in World War II, those soldiers only brought back one thing that identified them as veterans. And a lot of those were swastikas in a smaller form, whether it be pins from the German soldiers or some sort of ribbon somebody would be wearing in Germany. They brought that back, and that's how they identified each other.
Because you had to be there to get it.
Absolutely. It wasn't just handed out. It wasn't just given out. It wasn't just printed at some store.
You couldn't buy it at the PX.
No, definitely not. And you couldn't buy it at some, you know, patch shop either. You know, it was earned by every service member who set foot in Germany and came back, either whole or not. It was earned. And so when they came back, that's how they identified each other. As far as the lightning bolts, all that is you're the best of the best at the end of the day. The same way that in World War II they used them, the German soldiers used them to identify their better soldiers, their elite, it's the same way that it's used now. But even when you look past, beyond the World War II, there is elements and there is the exact same symbolism used by Hinduism, the Druids, the Aztecs, the Mayans. Everybody has used swastikas. We have just misinterpreted due to the fact that the closest and most relevant event in history that has them was the World War II German army.
And I'm sitting here looking at a very Aztec man. You are a carbon copy of the things we see carved into the petroglyphs in Mexico City and Guadalajara. And
you look like a caveman, I get it.
No, you look like an Aztec. I mean, you know, that's what you are, and that's a good thing. But it just occurs to me that, you know, you could tell me what that swastika means to an Aztec.
To an Aztec, it's a symbol. It's a sacred symbol. It's put actually in the graves of leaders and also people who held some sort of responsibility in their tribe, in their land. You know, at the same time, it's also a symbol for the sun. You know, which the sun is the all-giving power of life. And yes, it is rotated at a 45-degree angle, the same way the Nazis rotated at a 45-degree angle. But if you look further into Hinduism, it's a symbol of luck. If you look into other religions, it's a symbol of Christianity. But people want to portray it as, oh, it means nothing but hate and fascism. To be honest, I was stationed in Germany, and I got to see a lot of the historical landmarks, you know, that a lot of soldiers from World War II were able to see and fight in. And I got to see a lot of the underground tunnels that were there at my own personal post. But the reason I wear it is because I've realized the society, once I came back, wasn't willing to accept me. And I don't like a lot of people due to that, because I gave everything up. I paused my entire life to serve my country, and I will never regret it. But I wear it now because at the same time, not only do I have the veteran spirit in me, but I want to keep the wrong people away.
This is Veterans Day.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, to me, I am a veteran. I will wear it the same way the veterans before me have. And if people see it as disrespect, I really don't care. You know, if they can't respect the history, if they can't respect that, then I don't need you around me. I'd rather you keep your distance.
Now, the way that Owen ran things, or does run things. You had described in an earlier conversation that it's kind of like a pod boss or somebody, a building tender and a wing at TDC. I'm understanding that he and a lot of his boys are they're members of what's called Aryan Circle, which is the Texas branch of the Aryan Brotherhood.
Was from what the last I've heard is he's actually not exactly welcomed by them anymore. And what I do know about his pod boss mentality is this: when I was a standing member, any person who's been in a club, not even a 1% club, but you could be in the Boys and Girls Club, you can be in the chess club, any club, when any decision is made, has to be taken to a vote. A majority vote to be passed and to be approved. It wasn't that way with him. When everything started off, I believe it was December or November of 2016, we started off here in Harker Heights, Texas. And we had our meeting here, and it was about 30 to 38, I believe, somewhere around there. And the speech he gave, I mean, was just one of those speeches that you just think, man, you know what, this guy's got a point. He said, for one, we're taking the Cossacks' name, we're taking their colors. There's not a fucking thing they're going to do about it, because we are the baddest motherfuckers here. Now, was he lying? I don't think he was lying as far as the fact that the Ugly Man Cossacks knew that the Waco Cossacks were different. The Central Texas Cossacks were different. We've always been those guys, you know, that were a lot rowdier than the rest. You know, we are the rowdier bunch. We were, I should say, because I am no longer a member and in no way, shape, or form affiliated with them. However, when he gave that speech, he said that we would be a brotherhood, that our voice would be heard. Because the Ugly Man Cossacks, every time something happened, they wanted to take our patches. Every time we showed up to a meeting, there was always this kind of thought in the back of our head that they were going to try to corner us and take our patches away. So one day he came up with the idea that we were just going to start our own club, and we were going to throw the 1% diamond on because we had earned it. And by we, I do not include myself in that because I was not at Twin Peaks, but he was referring to a lot of the brothers that were at Twin Peaks. And he said that they had earned it because they had put their time in, they had put, you know, and there was other ways for me to prove of my worth to him and to the club. However, at the end of the day, what bought everybody's loyalty that night was the fact that we were promised a word, we were promised a vote, we were promised to be heard, and we were promised to have a opinion on how our club was going to go, or going to grow, I should say, in, you know, in which direction we were going to go from there.
So is that why you're out and out bad now? Because you just decided you weren't going to live that way?
I am out, and I left, and I still have my patches to this day.
Tell me the story about that. How'd that come down?
So I was the Sergeant at Arms, like I said, for the mother chapter of the 1% Cossacks. And just to fill everybody in, you know, just I will get back to the root of the problem. My president was a guy who's well known and has been in the community for years. He has a good history. He's had a lot of good friends. And I mean, the guy is one of those people that if he says something, he fucking does it. He doesn't ever lie. He has no reason to fucking steal, and he won't ever cheat you out of anything. But to earn his respect, it's not something easy. The only reason me and this gentleman came about to becoming friends was because one day, after I felt that I was cheated out of the respect I deserved by a prospecting member, I sat there and I explained to him how this prospect was disrespecting a past member. But due to the fact that I was the youngest member of the club, a lot of the time my judgment was questioned. Even though I wasn't fueled with drugs, even though I am a college student, I am educated and a veteran, my judgment was questioned every single time due to my age. Well, me and this gentleman, this brother of mine, as we were 1% Cossacks, we realized that our leadership wasn't meeting the demands they needed to meet, in the sense of we were going to get soft colors. They collected all the money. 6 months later, still no soft colors. We're going to get the patches made. There was never a vote on where those patches, which patch we were going to go with. There was never a vote on who we were going to have them done by. There was never a vote on where we were going to get our shirts done, and if we even liked the shirts. It was more of, we were just told what we were going to take, and that's what it is. If you don't like it, then you can walk. And you know what? At a certain point, I said, you know what? The patch isn't too bad. Okay, why not? But eventually, I started seeing people have their patches taken from them without a vote. I started seeing people have to pay for transgressions they had nothing to do with. Nothing was ever voted on. Whatever he said went. It was a dictatorship, not a democracy within the club itself.
That's not the way that a motorcycle club operates.
Absolutely. And this is why when me and my president started noticing this, we started to become the outcast within our own club. Even though we were the only ones out there riding every day, we were the only ones out there making us look good, we were the only ones that would stand up to anybody who would question who we were. We were, at the end of the day, if you're just a leader and you stay behind closed doors, you're not much of a leader, you're more of a boss. And this is where I talk about his pod boss mentality. When the soft colors were made and Owen Reeves found out about it, he decided that he wanted to charge up my president and get real close to him and tell him that he had crossed the line, and it became a yelling event. Well, you promised a soft cut 6 months.
Well, one indication that I have of your character is that you're a repo man. And this means you roll up on people that don't have a right to have that car or that motorcycle or that mobile home or whatever it is. And you got the paperwork. It's yours. And you take it. Now, this has become a very sophisticated operation. You've got a computer. You've got a list of what belongs to the company. And you can drive to a parking lot and just scan and get apartments or bars or anywhere. You happen to be doing that the night of Twin Peaks. And you drove up to Waco just to see what was going on. Could you break it down?
So I have been working repo for a company called First Call out of Central Texas area. And I had been working repo before Twin Peaks actually happened. Just to clarify, I was not at Twin Peaks. I had been socializing with Cossacks due to the school that I attended. I had seen a couple of them there. They liked my stature. They liked the fact that I was athletically involved with the school. Well, around the Twin Peaks time, I didn't know too much because I wasn't really let into the circle too much. I didn't know what was going on. I was left out because I was still just somebody that they were talking to, But I remember going up towards the Waco area several times, and just getting close to the Twin Peaks time, I saw a severe increase in police presence. And I saw, normally you just see cop cars, the SUVs, the small SUVs, and, I think they're not Impalas anymore, they're like the Ford, whatever they are, Tauruses. Well, now we're starting to see the actual vans, surveillance vans. And so I remember the night before Twin Peaks happened, I saw an extreme amount of police presence around Twin Peaks, and I believe whatever that restaurant is, I don't know if it's Don Carlos. And I just, I didn't think much of it. I was there to do my job. I was there to pick up vehicles and scan license plates and make my money. But I didn't know that there was a UCal meeting there the next day. If I would have known, I would have said something. And all I remember was I get off work around 6, 7 a.m. and I go home. When I woke up to big shootout in Waco. I started looking the area up, and I said, that's exactly where all those cops were at. There was a van sitting on myself. Well, I'm going to go back to Waco that same night. I have to go see this place. I have to go see what, how bad it looks, because from the way they made it seem on the news, they made it seem like it was a war zone. Now, being somebody who's been in a war zone, majority of the time when you're going on these convoys, the one way you know if you're going to bad areas, you'll see the bullet holes everywhere on the wall. Everything is riddled with marks of bullets scraping or riding the wall, or actual bullet holes that have penetrated through the dirt walls where all these Afghans live. When I got there, it didn't look like something off of a war zone. It looked more like an ambush, You look at where everybody was staged at, and you look at the surrounding area, and you start thinking to yourself, well, this doesn't look all too, it doesn't look like a firefight between two clubs. This looks like, somebody had the upper hand. And being that camera pole was actually being taken down that day, I'm thinking to myself, well, what's going on here? How does somebody predict a firefight? You can't do it in Afghanistan. I can predict that this is a bad area, but I've gone through several bad areas in Afghanistan. And you know what? We've driven right past those areas and nothing has ever happened. But yet these gentlemen were ready. They were prepared to record the whole thing. They were staged on top of the buildings. There's pictures of these snipers on top of buildings. There's pictures of a gentleman by the name of Corey Ledbetter sitting across from Twin Peaks with an AR-15 and a military-styled plate carrier. This isn't your standard issue vest. Standard issue vest is more of an IOTV style, which wraps around your waistline. It's very uncomfortable because you can't move. Us grunts, us linemen, we were given plate carriers. Why? Because our mobility was increased. We can move. We were more agile with it. We can jump over walls a lot easier. Why is it that cops in the street of Waco have that when that's what soldiers in Afghanistan use?
They got it from the G. They got it from grants. A lot of stuff is surplus. They can bid on it, or they can just go for a grant and buy it brand new. Now, that pole camera, I want you to know that there was sworn testimony in court by Agent Frost. And I think his second in command was Red Boots, Corey Ledbetter.
Yes, sir.
And you've got documentation that shows us that.
Yes, sir.
Also, that was in satellite communication with the Fusion Center.
Yes, sir.
Now, the Fusion Center is operated by the G, by the Department of Homeland Security. Now, DPS has got their own operation there, that's true. But you've got to remember, that's satellite communication, that's going at the speed of light in real time. And Jade 2, which is what Jade Helm was named for, is a product of Raytheon. And Raytheon made this stuff, and it is artificial intelligence battlefield software, so that the on-scene commander, he could be at Nellis Air Force Base, he could be at CENTCOM in Tampa, he could be at Special Operations Group headquarters in Fort Bragg, he could be at the Pentagon, he could be in the Situation Room of the White House. In fact, all those locations can be hooked up simultaneously. They also have access to all body cam, radio commo. They've got it all. They've got the mobile data terminals coming off the police cars. They've got everything. And that thing can make a recommendation to the commander and say, right now, I suggest that you do this. And it might be something he hadn't even thought of because he doesn't have all that information in his head. He's got it on his console. He's got it on his screen. So that's what those guys were up against. And am I right in thinking that's what military men call an L-shaped ambush?
Absolutely. Absolutely. With the way that the police was set up, with the way that you don't bring snipers and put them on roofs. That's an ambush. When you set up prior to everybody showing up, that's an ambush. These guys, both sides, walked into an ambush. And the reason I say both sides is because I firmly believe that there's guys on the Cossack side who had absolutely no idea what they were walking into. But I also believe that Owen Reeves and a couple of his guys knew exactly what was going to happen that day. I'm a firm believer in it. There's a gentleman who I know for a fact was an ATF informant in the Cossack side.
Can you give us his name?
His name was Dog, from what I know. He was out in the East Texas area. Another gentleman along with him were busted for a lab. And when they got busted, so there's a couple guys involved in that story who are still relevant. Dog, obviously, he's no longer here. He was an informant. I don't care. The other gentleman is a guy by the name of Wes McAllister, a.k.a. Chaos. He was with the Ugly Man Cossacks, and I'm going to come back to him because somehow, some way, he is now the vice president for the 1% Cossacks. Well, Dog, his get out of jail free card was him becoming an informant for the ATF. And I do believe that the reason why he's no longer here is because if he would have made it out of there alive, he would be singing the same way he was singing before then. You know, he was a canary, is what I like to call him. He likes to sing. Well, he's no longer here, and I'm a firm believer that they did that to keep him quiet.
And he died at Twin Peaks?
He died at Twin Peaks. However...
What's his right name?
I do not know his actual name. I wouldn't be able to tell you. Like I said, I wasn't too involved in the circle at that point.
Somebody knows who Dog is.
Yes, somebody knows who he is, you know. And I'm sure, you know, with due time, everything will surface. However, the other name, which I mentioned, was Wes McAllister, a.k.a. Chaos. Chaos was also caught in that bust. Well, he turned on his uncle, and his uncle's doing a 70 to 80 year bid now in state jail because he turned on him along with Dog. Well, when he turned on him, the Ugly Man Cossacks, 1969 Cossacks out of Tyler, Texas, they knew about it. They had documentation of it. So they did what any motorcycle club who likes to live the traditional ways and views of motorcyclism would do. They stripped him of his patches and put him out bad. When the 1% Cossacks started, Owen Reeves himself would tell everybody to stay away from him. But eventually the vice president he had wasn't budging and wasn't going with everything Owen Reeves said because he realized this guy's not right. I'm not just going to sit here and be a pushover. Well, he also left the club. But he left in good standing because he turned his patches in. He ended up leaving and doing what he wanted to do. He's a great guy. I still talk to him. You know, he, like me, loves and embraces the old school motorcyclist lifestyle. And that's what he lives for. But he realized, like many other members from the 30 original members, that we had deviated from what we originally wanted to do. And the thing about deviations is this: it's like shooting a bullet. You pull that trigger and it deviates from the target. The further along it gets in its trajectory, the further away it goes from its target. So once you deviate once, you've already fucked everything up. It's very hard to bring it all back into what it stands for and its true nature and walking that straight and narrow line for what we believe in and what we stand for. So he left. But going back to this Wes McAllister guy, months later, once that other VP left because he realized that everything was just becoming what it wasn't supposed to stand for, and it was a dictatorship and there was no way of persuading Owen Reeves finds it very convenient to bringing Wes McAllister. Now, my thing is this. You're a 1% Club national president. How in the hell are you going to bring in a guy who not only is known for ratting, but he ratted out on his own family? There's documentation of it, and he has been put out bad from a club who's been around since 1969 because they have solid, concrete evidence of this. But not only are you going to bring him in, but you're going to bring him in and make him national vice president? What sense does that make to any true 1%er? We don't talk to law enforcement. Now, am I going to sit here and tell you that if my bike is stolen, I don't have to report? Absolutely, I'll report it because whoever goes after it, I don't know, they may kill somebody with it. The last thing I need is for that to come back to me. So absolutely, you know, I'll report a stolen bike, but I'm not going to sit here and go look for somebody. But this guy didn't do that. He turned on his own family so that he wouldn't have to go to jail. Matter of fact, I remember instances where this man would be running from so-called red and gold members, and he was hiding in an ice cream shop. This is the 1% Cossacks vice president. This is who he is. He is a known rat, and he is somebody who runs when outnumbered. He can't stand alone. But all of them are like that. Every single one of them.
So, do you think that that this on-scene commander or Agent Frost or Lieutenant Schwartz or perhaps people higher than them, or maybe with, I don't know, ATF or the FBI or some type of umbrella organization such as the Department of Homeland Security, they've assessed their character and they found out they would be very useful to them in their operation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just like any other operation that the government likes to, execute, I would say.
It reminds me of a Phoenix operation, the Phoenix program that was devised by an individual named Bill Colby in Vietnam, and then he came back and he became director of CIA, and he operated Phoenix program style operations throughout the sphere of influence of the United States of America, which is global. And so when I saw this, and I saw the way that the people were incarcerated under extremely high bail, I said to myself, self, Chingao, man, this is a Phoenix deal, but it happened up the street up here in Waco, Texas.
Absolutely.
Right down there where you went over there the other day and bought a box of bullets over there at Cabela's, and then went over there and got yourself some computer paper or something at Best Products, and then they ran around and stopped at no, I didn't get no fabric, but I stopped at Luby's in downtown Belle Meade, Texas, and had lunch, and I went on back to Kash2, and man, that's where that club originates, is Belle Meade, right?
The 1% Cossacks, they don't originate from there, but that just happens to be the stomping ground, the living grounds of Mr. Reeves, you know. As far as where he lives, if anybody's out there and pays attention, it's not hard to find him. The guy doesn't ever step far away from his household unless he has 3 people with him. Okay, so all these guys have a prison record. I know that this is not really relevant to 1%er, but Zeke, the national president of Ugly Man Cossacks, is still on parole for 99 years for the murder of a female with a rock. And that I like Zeke. I like him. I want to see him. He was good to me. And we wound up actually having some rapport one with the other. Now, his associates didn't trust me, and they made that known. But he told me, he said, come back and see me anytime you want to. I like you. Well, you know what? If he walked through that door right now, I wouldn't be sad to see him.
because I don't have anything personal against him. He's got a problem with the state of Texas, not Jim. See, so, but the bottom line is, it occurs to me that those people are under a great deal of government control.
I don't know too much about Zeke. I know.
Well, I don't mean Zeke. I mean the 1%er guys, the ones you do know.
The 1% Cossacks or the ugly man Cossacks?
No, not the ugly man. I just know that Zeke has got a problem, but I don't know much about the rest of them. But from what I know about events in Bosqueville with people who are known police informants who were very much in contact out of Belmead. They originate from Belmead. There was a woman who lost her life. Her children lost her life. One of her children survived. And that was based on false green light, something that wasn't true. And all those people were taken either to TDC or to private lockups in other parts of the country. One of them went to a mental institution. The entire structure of public safety in Waco changed. The city manager changed. Now we're talking the chief of police. The chief of police was out looking for a different job when Twin Peaks happened.
He doesn't know much about. I know exactly what you're talking about because one of those guys' brothers was a 1% Cossack.
Thank you, sir. There are some individuals in the Waco, Texas area who sure would like to speak with y'all, because there's men who have lost their careers over stuff it's the same kind of stuff you're describing, except this is public service. This is public safety. These are Officer McGruff, man. I mean, these are the people you look up to. They're supposed to help you solve your problems or something, okay? But it doesn't really work that way, you see. So, is there anything you'd like to add?
See, by the name of Trashley and Snacks, when they get pulled over by the police, they're being pulled over and the cop comes up, and I mean, Yvonne immediately turns to her paperwork and says, "Oh, I get seizures," which is bullshit paperwork. She just has that, so whenever he gets pulled over, he doesn't get in trouble.
She don't even have
full of fucking club members
and dope and guns.
And you're gonna sit here and tell me that this cop looks in there and just looks at him and says, "Hey, I know exactly who you are, so I'm going to let you go, but leave before I change my fucking mind," and hands him all his paperwork back and lets him go? What fucking cop does that? Snacks came back after that trip and he kept telling us, "Man, there's something up, there's something up, there's something up." And the moment that Owen Reeves caught wind of that, they stripped his patches without a vote. And not only that, but he brought the guys from out east to take his patches, because he knew me and my president weren't fucking doing it. That's my brother, and I told him, and he knew that I had made Snacks a promise, and I told him, if there's ever any sort of...
You're talking about the sergeant at arms coming out of Gun Barrel City, right, man?
I'm talking about Chaos. Wes McAllister, the guy who ratted on his uncle and is somehow now the VP for the 1% Cossacks. He came out of Tyler with a group of his guys after we had just had a sit down with the kinfolk, and we socialized with them at Fuzzy's Tacos and Temple. We came back to Waco, and when we got to our destination, we went into a garage, and the only person offered a seat was Snacks. And immediately everybody surrounded him. Snacks is no longer with us. He's gone. He was murdered last year. But the thing is this.
Have they brought someone to justice for the murder?
Nope. They claim it as self-defense, but I know Snacks because I put more miles on the ground with that man than anybody else in this world.
Where did it take place?
Out here in Killeen, Texas. But the sit down.
So the confrontation with another dude, and they no-billed him because he acted in self-defense?
They pretty much, they're claiming from the information that was gathered, they're saying it was self-defense.
Has he appeared in front of a grand jury?
No, nothing was ever, there was no further investigation after.
So they declined further prosecution and grand jury inquiry?
Totally. That guy that did this is sitting in jail right now, probably going to prison for plotting to blow up the whole neighborhood he lived in with pipe bombs. The feds done got him.
Yeah, but the thing was this.
That's way after.
Can you give me that name?
His name is Chris DeBoer.
Thank you.
DeBorde, DeBoer. But the problem is this: when Snack sat down in that garage that day, it was Wes McAllister who said, "Look, we're taking your patches away. We'll give them back to you. But as of right now, you're not allowed to be with us." And all I remember is Snacks looked at him, and then he locked eyes with me the rest of the fucking conversation because he felt betrayed by me. And I never, to this fucking day, I could put it on my fucking life that I had no fucking clue what was going on because everybody Snacks, because he knew I wasn't going to support it. He knew he'd hear about it from me.
So it's okay, so if you just violated the rule, we ain't made up yet.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
That's a grim tale. That's a very grim tale, amigo.
Yep. But like I said, the moment they went down to Houston, no cop. I've been pulled over by cops several times, and I have never.
That ain't Houston talking, man. Let me tell you something. You get pulled over in Houston, man. Any little move you make, they'll be slapping that holster and saying, "Hey, man, wait a minute, step out of that car. Put them hands on the hood of this car."
That's one thing. Snacks.
Get out of here before I change my mind.